I do myself, we focus on the day-to-day, we focus on the operations, the short term. But what I'd like to have you think about is, in addition to that, focus on a parallel path or create a parallel path where you also think down the road at some point when you're looking to exit the business, exit your career, retire, etc. And one of the things that, I should say the reasons why I would suggest it makes sense to think about that is that I'm sure for a lot of you and everybody you want to retire at some point. So that's obviously one of the big reasons. The second would be, though, is while you're operating day to day in your business, if you can take the time to think about that, paint a picture of that date where you may want to exit, it will give you some benchmarks. It'll give you some things to focus on, because if you focus on how to get out of the business with the maximum sales price, with the maximum amount of money, so that you can retire securely, then it gives you benchmarks and things you need to focus on today, tomorrow, and every day between now and then. So one of the other reasons is that it will give you some benchmarks. The third reason, though, is, and this is probably what I see more often than not, is there's typically some unforeseen event. So we all would like to retire, but there's typically some unforeseen event that I work with businesses to help them with is, let's say the business owner becomes disabled, the business owner passes away, or what typically happens is there's family obligations. We live in this sandwich generation where kids are moving back, a lot of focus and energy helping the kids, but also planning for your elderly parents, aging parents if there's medical conditions. So we've seen a lot of times where you have these plans, but you're not thinking long-term enough, and as a result of some unforeseen events, you're forced into making some decisions, and a lot of times it really hurts you. And what we're trying to basically do is help clients avoid negative outcomes. And so I was trying to think of a way to relate or create an analogy between fly fishing, which I love, and business, which I also love. And I found this video that I thought I'd play because I think it illustrates that if you really work hard, things will pay off for you in the long run. Probably can't hear it, sorry. Don't you just love YouTube? And of course, you know that business obviously isn't that easy, and certainly when you go fishing, fish don't just jump in your boat. But what I thought I'd do is kind of focus on some strategies that you may want to consider. And again, you focus day to day, you work day to day on the short term, you work on growing your business. But there are strategies you can look at and consider, and I'm going to kind of go through all 5 of these. The first one is what I call search for your favorite rivers. And that's really some strategies, exercises, or tools you can use to make sure that you're passionate about what you're doing. We actually use a lot of these tools internally with our staff, with our clients, etc. But obviously, if you want to work is hard, business is hard, and if you're really not passionate about it, and if you really don't love it, it certainly makes it a lot harder. And assuming you're passionate, then we always will then focus on discovering what we call your fishing hole, which is basically trying to identify and connect better with your clients, finding out where they're going, what they're thinking, what they're doing. Because if you can connect better and you can find out more what they're thinking and doing, you'll obviously provide better service, but you'll also be a lot more efficient and hopefully grow your business better. When we talk about bringing the right gear, and I've got some strategies I'll review with there, what we're really talking about is making sure that you have all the right tools to be profitable. So assuming you're passionate about your business and your industry, and assuming you know everything about your clients, how do you make sure you deliver the service consistently among all your staff so that you're obviously giving a better service, but also you end up doing it more profitably. And then down the road, as you're looking downstream, you hopefully will also get a better value when you go to sell the firm or practice. But the areas where I think that a lot of business owners don't focus so much on, and we do try to focus more on, is what I call create your incubator. And that's really all about groups like this, where you're trying to not only find mentors who you can work with, but also creating mentors or people that you can mentor. And what I mean by that is when you're in your business and you have your own things you do well, you need to surround yourself and network with other business people and other groups in your industry that'll hopefully help you. And then the final thing I'll go through briefly is what we call don't hand down more than your waders and rods and reels, and that basically reflects where we do a lot of planning. We put together what I think is great plans where we work together with other attorneys and CPAs, etc. But a lot of times if you don't take what's in the brain of the business owner, if you don't take the experiences and the knowledge and create a way to pass that, the business succession plan typically fails. So where else can you see a grown man in waders, and not think it's too goofy looking, but I was able to fish last year in the Yampa River up in Steamboat. And although my friends have told me that this is not the best looking fish, or certainly not the biggest fish that anyone's ever caught, it's an important fish to me because it happened to be on a day where everything just clicked. And it just confirmed how much I love fly fishing. So I was on the river, I had a really good guide, the weather was great, there was a lot of oxygen in the water, so we kind of knew where the fish would be. I made the perfect cast. It was probably the 50th cast, but I made the perfect one this time. And then I set the hook, and then I spent about 20 minutes going down the river, trying not to get my waders full, and I was able to bring the fish in. And the point of the picture is that you see the conquest, just like in business, you see the successes. You look around and you might see people who have successful businesses and you say, wow, that looks great, it must be easy. But what you don't see is how hard the work that it takes to go into it. And so keep in mind that the content I'm going through today is designed for about a half-day workshop. So some of the things I may go through, I may brush through, but keep in mind that if anybody has any questions about any of it, my contact information is on the back of the handout, and I'll be able to provide anything you want. One of the things we do to help employees, we've done some of this with clients, my wife Nancy, who's here, we've done it together, is this blueprinting process. And the purpose of the blueprinting process is really to kind of go through a series of questions to really define what gets you going, what gets you excited, not just personally, but also in business. And when you end up going through that process, what we have found is hopefully you'll decide whether this is the career, this is the industry, this is the business you want to be in. Or in some cases, we've worked with clients where they've redirected their product lines. They've decided, yeah, I don't want to be in this product line, this makes more sense for me to be in because this fits more with my passion. And the other thing we do is something called the Perfect Day exercise. And I think this is actually valuable, and it may be something you'll want to try yourself. And the Perfect Day exercise just says, if I start at 6 in the morning and I go through the 24-hour cycle of the clock, and I ask myself, what are my clients doing? Why are they doing it? Where are they doing it? Etc. And then, me personally, where would I like to be when I'm working? So in other words, if I write down that I like to be inside, if I write down that I'd like to be sunlight, like in our house, Nancy loves lights, we have lots of windows. I prefer shade. We have lots of windows. But if you go through this list of things, you may find I like to talk to people, I like to work with computers, etc. And when we go through the process and people write down what their perfect day would look like, you identify what's important, and then you also identify what the fluff is, and then you focus on what's important. And so I know this is a very, I don't want to say seasoned group, but a very experienced group. So I'm guessing that all of you are very passionate about your industry and your jobs. So we won't focus too much time on this, but I did do a junior achievement class at the high school last year. I taught one where we did focus a lot of time on that. The other thing that I'll talk about is what I call discovering your fishing hole, which is really where are your clients. When you read if anybody likes fishing, Orvis has one of the best fly fishing guides out there. And what they will tell you is that the optimal temperature for a trout, if you care, is between 50 and 68 degrees. And the reason why that's important is that if you're fishing and the water temperature is too cold or too hot, you're not going to find fish. So knowing the temperature of the water obviously is important in terms of finding where the fish are. So this is a picture from last year. I went with the group up to Canada fishing, and typically the water, the ice breaks in Canada in the first week of June, but last year they had a really mild winter, and then they had a pretty warm spring. So it broke in May. We typically go the first week of June, but we actually went in July. And what happened is we got there, so you travel for a day, you travel 1,000 miles, and literally the water's too warm, we couldn't find any fish. So this is a point where after 2 days, we pulled the boats off to the side, found a path, and we thought, okay, we're just going to take our gear and find another lake. And we actually walked about 1.5 miles. We did find another lake, but didn't find any fish there either. But the point is that as a business people, you obviously don't want to allocate all your resources without knowing where your clients are going to be. And so we do a series of exercises internally in our office. We also do some of these with our clients. But I had started to mention briefly a day in the life, and that's the point where if you look at your clients, and we only have about 90 families that we work with, so it's easy for us to personalize it, where I can take each individual family and say, where are they at 6 o'clock in the morning? You know, I'm sleeping. Where are they at 11 o'clock at night? But you're going to find some of them are golfing, some of them are working, some of them are dropping off for childcare. But by understanding better where each of your clients are at different points of the day, it's much easier for you to allocate your resources. You know, when should we be calling them? When should we not be calling them? I had someone in my office make some calls at 5:30 to clients, and I didn't scold them, but I just said, really, you don't call at night, because that's not when people want to usually hear from us. The other thing we do is we have these client surveys and also meeting questionnaires. So all of our clients get surveyed every year, at least once, and then we have a series of questionnaires that I have. And I don't fill them out at every meeting, but usually it's probably at least twice a year. And the point is you're just trying to make better connections, identify where people are, what they're thinking, where they're going, and then you can then more efficiently allocate your own resources, but more importantly, I think you're providing a much better service to the client. And then we go through that perfect client process too, where in business, I'm sure you have this, or you have a picture in your mind of what one looks like. But ultimately, if you know who you connect with, if you know who your clients are and where they are, you can kind of develop a model client and then hopefully clone them and again, provide services more efficiently. So assuming that you're really passionate about your business, about your industry, and let's assume for a second that you have lots of tools in place where you know your clients, the next step I think is always what I call having the right gear, or making sure you have the right tools to deliver the services profitably and efficiently. And as you're looking downstream again, you're looking for that point where you may want to exit your business. These are the kinds of things that people will look at, potential buyers will look at in terms of valuing it. So we always talk about having great people, and I do believe we have really great people in the office right now. The other part of the equation, though, is what I call great processes. If a client comes in and talks to Kevin or Bob or Shannon or Chris, we want to make sure that they're getting the same service. So we actually go through and we try to systematize, or we try to create processes for almost everything. Whether it's a customer meeting, marketing, sales, investment processes, etc. And not that we're creating a size 9 shoe for everybody, because we're not. Everything we do is customized. But at the same time, we want to make sure that people are getting consistent services. There's also a couple other things we do to make sure that we're delivering services consistently and profitably. One is what we call the contribution analysis. And initially when I did this, I was a little uncomfortable about it. It was in 2002 when I worked with a consultant who asked me, do you know how much revenue and how much profit you generate from each client? And so my first response was no, I've never looked at that. And my second response was, I'm not really sure that I want to know that, because I don't want to sit in an office or sit in a meeting with somebody and think, okay, this is much revenue, this much profit. Well, what the consultant said was, yeah, that's great, but the reality is that unless you really know, you don't really know if you're consistently providing services. But not only that, if you truly believe that what you're doing is of value to them, if you truly think that they're better off having met you, then it's going to do nobody any good if you're in bankruptcy, if you don't succeed. So there's this relationship with the client where you're providing services, you're providing value, but you're also needing to make a profit. And so we went through this elaborate process and kind of determined, and as a result, there were some product lines we changed, we also found out that we were not applying fee schedules consistently. You know, some were too low and some were too high, so we went back and changed all that. And I think in the end what happened is we had more focus on the client, more focus on the services we provided, but also long-term, as I look downstream and look for an exit, I think we'll have a much better value to offer. The other thing we do is something called OAD testing, and there's all kinds of different names for this. I was never a believer in it, but I am now, and this is just profile testing that you may give a prospective person you're going to hire, or that you may also use for existing employees that you have. And I'll give you an example. It's about 3 years ago, I was, again, working with a different consultant, and I had gone through 100 resumes, roughly. I had 15 phone interviews. Then I had 5 in-person interviews, followed by 2 more. And I was very, very confident that I had the right person for the position. So I called Ed, who's the consultant, and he's literally sitting on a beach in Los Angeles somewhere. And I said, Ed, you know, this is what I did. I did the interviews, I got this done, and you know, I got this great candidate. And he had the test results too. So I had everybody go online and fill out a 25-question survey. And I said, Ed, this person's really sharp. He said, no, he's not, Tim. I said, no, really, he's a go-getter. He's going to be great. He said, Tim, run. You should not hire this person. So of course I hired him, you know, because I knew better. And within 90 days, I knew that it didn't work. And so these surveys do 2 things. When you're looking to hire somebody, it talks about what their strengths and weaknesses are, and you match it against the job position that you're trying to fill. But I think it also helps for existing employees, because if I know that someone's more detail-oriented, more creative, more marketing-oriented, it helps me with the job skills and telling them what they need to be doing, but also how I reward them. So I think that if there's profitability, if there's things you can do to make your firm profitable, your company profitable, it's things like this, because as you, again, paint a picture down the road, when at some point you're going to want to exit and retire, you need a business that works in spite of you, that works without you. You know, you need to focus not just on the day-to-day operations of how the business runs, but you need to focus on how it's structured and how it looks. And if you do that, you'll end up getting a much better succession plan. This is the area where I think that, again, we do a lot of work in, but a lot of people really don't think about, especially business owners, and that is finding your incubator, creating your incubator. Twice a year, I go to a meeting with my broker-dealer in the securities industry, and I network with roughly 50 top advisors around the country. They're not in my territory, there's nothing competitive about it, so we do a lot of sharing. I learned so much from these people, and I know there are programs I've implemented, things I've learned that have made my firm better because of them. Also twice a year, I go to another meeting which is not related to my broker-dealer, but in the industry. And there's about 400 advisors that show up to that. Same thing. It's just a lot of networking, and I have found tremendous people who have mentored me, who have given me great advice that I've taken and I've implemented in my firm. But the part that I think people never think about is I highly recommend you all consider becoming a mentor. You know, in these groups like this, in the chamber, in Rotary, in any groups, in associations, I think you should be a mentor, because what I've seen in 26 years of doing this is that's where you are more than likely going to find your succession plan. And I'll just give you an example. I personally have brought in 5 different people. So I've exerted a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of resources to bringing in 5 people who I thought might have been my exit plan. And it turns out they're not. On 3 of them, through the blueprinting process and just through working together, we all determined that they wanted to do something else. They didn't really want to be in this industry long term. And then 2 of them didn't work out. So you might say that I'm 0 for 5. I have 2 more that work for me now that I think could be my succession plan, but time will tell. But when the first time I ever went fishing in Canada, because I grew up in Chicago playing in alleys, so I didn't know fishing existed, I went with Buzz Goff, who's a really good friend of mine. And I'm in the boat just casting with Buzz, and every 3rd cast, Buzz is bringing out these big fish. And I'm casting safely, you know, far away from the rocks and far away from the weeds so I could preserve my lures, and I'm catching nothing. And at one point, Buzz said to me, you know, Tim, you have to be willing to lose a few lures to catch some fish. So until I started casting in the rocks, in the weeds, under the logs where the fish are, that's when I started having success. And so I look at it the same way in finding my mentor, finding people I can mentor, because if you want to retire at some point and you own a business and you're looking to get out at some point, you need to be proactively finding that person who's going to take over, and it may take a lot of chances. It may take 4 or 5 times, it may take 10 times. But if you're not doing that, you're really not finding your mentor, and you're going to have less likelihood of success. Now, some of you have family. I don't have anyone in my family who's interested at all. You know, I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just saying. So I'm out there looking. No, but so the point is, I talk to vendors, I talk to competitors, I talk to people in my office. I'm always looking, because if you're not, you're going to have a much more difficult time, especially if the unforeseen event comes. Now, this is a good friend of mine, Gary. Now, you saw the little fish I caught? Gary caught that within 5 miles of here. Gary sends me pictures once a week. Not right now, he's not fishing now, but he sends me pictures once a week of these enormous fish, and for a while there I thought he was just making them up. You know, it's like a blow-up fish or something. But no, I mean, he's catching them. And so I think often about, you know, how do we take what's in Gary's brain and transfer that? Because Gary could give me his fishing rod, and he could give me his best lures, and he could tell me which river to go to 5 miles from here, and I will not catch the same fish. Somebody taught him over the years. In fact, Gary's retired. He works at Bass Pro just to talk to other people about fishing. He just loves fishing so much. And so in business, the analogy is that I have worked in 26 years with a lot of people, a lot of business owners who have, you know, passionate for sure about their business, passionate about their clients. They absolutely were on top of everything. They were operating at a real high level, very profitable. And when it came time to sell, they actually had people who were ready to buy. But in a couple instances, it didn't work out because the business owner just kept it all in his brain. It would not transfer that experience. He knew how hard it was to earn that, how hard it was to grow it. The buyer did not. And unless you're passing that information, that knowledge to the buyer, it is a less likelihood of success. And so we have a whole series of processes and tools that we use to do that too. So that's my rambling overview. Like I said, it's usually the content is designed for a workshop, so we usually go into more detail. But if anybody has any questions about any of the things I talked about, I'm certainly available. I should have planted a few questions. Yes?
What is OAD testing? You have to do personality testing?
Yeah, I should have given you more information on that. OAD is really it's a brand. There's a number of different types of testing like that. The one I use is OAD, and it's a company. That's the name of a company. And literally, if I've had phone interviews, then what I'll do is I'll have that prospect just go online and fill out a 25-question survey. And it's really not a personality test as much as it is a job skills evaluator to tell you whether or not that person has a likelihood of fitting into the job skills that I'm looking for. Rex.
Tim, there are a lot of businesses that maybe have a younger generation of their family members that are maybe in a position to be part of that exit strategy to help the mother or dad and the principal get out. I'm sure you've advised clients in that situation, but could you maybe give some 1 or 2 key nugget ideas for someone if they have children in the business that you've seen, that a tip or something?
The one thing that I've seen and I've read the most about is that the worst thing you could ever possibly do is force somebody to be in the business. That you really have to, if you have children who are interested, it's great. If you have children who have the skill sets to take it over, that's awesome. It's just such a rare combination. When I see businesses where, well, it is. I mean,
thank you.
No, pat yourself in the back because literally,
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, because you're 95% can't do it. And,
I'm gonna go with the rare side.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. All right, this is good. No, because I have seen in 26 years I've worked with 100+ businesses, and I've seen, actually my favorite is I have one client that's now on the second generation, and I've worked with them throughout the whole thing, the two transitions, and that's extremely rare. But it's just very hard to find, and so everything I read says it's good if they work somewhere else first to get other experiences. I like to think then they know how good they have it when they show up. But I don't know how long I can wait. But anyway, I think it's good that they do other things and get other experiences, and just don't force them into it. All right, well, thank you very much. Like I said, if you need additional information, my contact information is there, because I'm really embarrassed that I gotta go.